Elena Russo thought she was just a struggling waitress delivering food to pay the bills, until the quiet driver pulled a gun and declared to armed men in the street, "She's with me." What she didn't know was that Victor Romano, the man she'd barely noticed behind the wheel, was one of the most feared Mafia bosses in the city. One moment she was counting spare change for rent, the next she was thrust into a deadly world where loving the wrong man could cost everything. But when Victor's enemies targeted her mute 7-year-old sister, Sofia, as leverage, Elena faced an impossible choice: accept the protection of a killer or watch the only family she had left disappear forever. What started as a desperate need for quick cash became a dangerous game of hearts, where trust was a luxury she couldn't afford, and love was a weapon that could destroy them all. Subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story of protection, passion, and family will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about survival and sacrifice. Elena's alarm screamed at 4 in the morning. She rolled over and slammed it off, her body aching from yesterday's double shift. The tiny apartment felt even smaller in the darkness. She could hear Sofia breathing softly in the bed next to hers. "Come on, baby," she whispered, gently shaking her 7-year-old sister's shoulder. "Time to get up." Sofia's eyes opened slowly. She never spoke anymore. Not since the night their parents died in that car crash 2 years ago. The doctors said there was nothing wrong with her voice. Sometimes trauma just took things away. Elena helped Sofia get dressed in her school uniform. The blue jumper was getting too small, but new clothes would have to wait. Everything had to wait these days. "You want cereal or toast?" Elena asked, knowing Sofia would point to the cereal box. She always did. Sofia pointed. Elena poured the last of the milk into a bowl. She'd skip breakfast again. Her stomach had gotten used to being empty. The mirror in their tiny bathroom showed the truth Elena tried to hide. Dark circles under her eyes, skin too pale. Hair that needed a real cut, not the uneven trim she'd given herself last month. She looked older than 28. She felt older too. "Ready, sweetie?" Sofia nodded and took Elena's hand. They walked 6 blocks to the elementary school. Elena's waitress uniform felt thin against the morning cold. Winter was coming, and their heater had been broken for 3 weeks. "Have a good day," Elena said, kneeling to hug Sofia goodbye. "Mrs. Martinez will pick you up, okay? I'll see you tonight." Sofia squeezed her tight and ran toward the school doors. Elena watched until she disappeared inside. Then she turned and walked the 12 blocks to the diner. The Morning Glory diner had seen better days. The vinyl seats were cracked, the coffee was weak, but it was a job, and Elena needed every dollar. "You're late," said Mr. Peterson, the manager. He was a thin man with greasy hair who always found something to complain about. "Sorry," Elena said, tying her apron around her waist. "The bus was running slow." She'd actually walked to save the bus fare, but he didn't need to know that. The lunch rush came and went in a blur of orders and demanding customers. Elena's feet hurt in her old shoes. A hole in the bottom let in cold air with every step. She smiled anyway. Tips were better when she smiled. By 3 o'clock, her pockets held exactly $14.63. Not enough. It was never enough. "Elena," Mr. Peterson called from behind the counter, "I need to talk to you." Her stomach dropped. Bad news always started that way. "I'm going to have to cut your hours next week," he said without looking at her. "Business is slow." "Please, Mr. Peterson, I need those hours. I can work harder. It's not about working harder. It's about money. I can't afford to pay you if customers aren't coming in." Elena felt the walls closing in. With fewer hours, she couldn't make rent. Without rent, she and Sofia would be on the street. Without a stable home, social services might take Sofia away. "Is there anything else I can do? Any other shifts?" Mr. Peterson scratched his chin. Well, there is one thing, but it's not regular work. I'll take it. It's a delivery job. Tonight, after your shift, a private client needs some food delivered to his office. The pay is good. $200 for one delivery. $200. More than Elena made in a week. What's the catch? No catch. Just a rich guy who wants his dinner delivered late. The driver will pick you up after closing. You ride along, deliver the food, come back. Easy money. Elena's instincts screamed that something wasn't right. Rich people didn't pay $200 for food delivery. But Sofia's face flashed in her mind. The eviction notice on their door. The empty refrigerator. Okay, she said, I'll do it. The rest of her shift crawled by. Elena counted every minute, every tip, every worry. When closing time came, she cleaned tables with shaking hands. At 10:30, car headlights cut through the darkness outside. Elena grabbed the bag of food and walked to the door. The car was black and expensive, the kind of car she'd only seen in movies. The driver got out and opened the back door for her. He was tall, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. His suit was perfectly fitted. His shoes probably cost more than Elena made in a month. Miss Russo? His voice was quiet, controlled. That's me. He nodded toward the open door. Please. Elena hesitated. Everything about this felt wrong, but Sofia needed food. They needed electricity. They needed a roof over their heads. She got in. The inside of the car was all leather and polished wood. It smelled like expensive cologne and something else. Something dangerous. The driver got behind the wheel. His eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. They were dark gray, like storm clouds. Where are we going? Elena asked. Not far, he said, starting the engine. 20 minutes. The car pulled away from the diner. Elena watched familiar streets disappear behind them. They were heading toward the expensive part of town where houses had gates and gardens. You don't talk much, Elena said, trying to fill the heavy silence. No, he agreed. She studied his reflection in the mirror. His jaw was sharp, his expression unreadable. His hands on the steering wheel were steady and strong. There was something about him that made her feel both safe and afraid at the same time. I've never seen you at the diner before, she tried again. I don't eat there. Then why? Someone recommended you, he said simply. That made no sense. Elena was just a waitress. She wasn't special. She wasn't someone who got recommended for mysterious late-night jobs. The radio crackled softly, static and distant voices she couldn't understand. The driver reached over and turned it off. Is that your radio? Elena asked. Something like that. They turned onto a tree-lined street with mansions set back behind iron gates. The houses were lit up like palaces. Elena had walked through this neighborhood once, just to see how the other half lived. She'd felt like a trespasser then. She felt like one now. Almost there, the driver said. That's when Elena saw the other car. It had been following them for 3 blocks, staying just far enough back to seem casual. But when they turned, it turned. When they slowed, it slowed. Elena said, her voice tight with worry. I think that car behind us, I see it. The driver's voice had changed. It was harder now, focused. His hand shifted position on the steering wheel. The expensive car suddenly felt like a weapon. Are we in trouble? Elena whispered. The driver's eyes found hers in the mirror. For just a moment, she saw something flicker across his face. Not fear, anger. Stay calm, he said. Everything will be fine. But the car behind them was getting closer. Elena could see 2 men in the front seat. The passenger was reaching for something under his jacket. They have guns, Elena breathed. The driver pressed harder on the gas pedal. The powerful engine responded instantly. They shot forward, leaving the other car behind for a moment. But not for long. The pursuing car accelerated too. At the next red light, there was nowhere to run. "Get down," the driver ordered. Elena slid low in her seat as the other car pulled up beside them. She could hear shouting, could see the flash of metal in the streetlights. That's when everything changed. The quiet, controlled driver was gone. In his place was someone else entirely. Someone who moved like lightning and thought like thunder. He threw the car into park and was out the door before Elena could blink. She heard his voice cut through the night air like a blade. "She's with me." The words carried weight, the kind of weight that made grown men step backward. Elena peered over the seat and saw something that made her blood freeze. The driver had a gun, and the way he held it said he knew exactly how to use it. The men from the other car were backing away. One of them was actually trembling. "We didn't know," one of them said. "We thought she was just—" "You thought wrong," the driver said. His voice was deadly quiet. "Disappear. Now." The men scrambled back to their car and sped away, tires screaming against the pavement. Elena sat in the back seat, shaking. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. The bag of food had spilled across the leather seats. The driver got back behind the wheel like nothing had happened. But something had changed. The air around him felt different, heavier, more dangerous. "What just happened?" Elena whispered. "A misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding? Those men had guns." "Yes, and you have a gun." "Yes." Elena stared at his reflection. "Who are you?" For a long moment he didn't answer. Police sirens were wailing in the distance, getting closer. "Someone who protects what matters," he said finally. Black SUVs were pulling up around them. Men in expensive suits were getting out. They moved with the same dangerous grace as the driver. They weren't police. They were something else entirely. "Victor," one of them called. "Everything clear?" Victor. So that was his name. "Take her home," Victor said, never turning around. "Make sure she's safe." "Wait," Elena said, as he started to get out. "What about the delivery? What about—" "You're done," he said simply. "Marco will drive you." A younger man with kind eyes opened Elena's door. "Miss Russo, I'm Marco. I'll get you home safely." Elena looked back at Victor. He was standing in the middle of the chaos, completely calm. Men twice his size were waiting for his orders. The streetlights cast shadows across his face, making him look like someone from a different world. A world Elena definitely didn't belong in. "Ma'am," Marco said gently, "we should go." Elena got into a different car, her mind spinning. She'd thought she was delivering food to some rich businessman. Instead, she'd stumbled into something that belonged in movies. Something dangerous and real and terrifying. As they drove away, she watched Victor disappear into the darkness. He was surrounded by his men talking in low voices, planning something, handling something, being someone she never could have imagined. The ride home passed in a blur. Marco was polite but quiet. He walked her to her apartment door and waited until she was safely inside. Elena locked the door behind her and leaned against it, breathing hard. Sofia was asleep in her bed, peaceful and safe. Everything looked exactly the same as when Elena had left, but everything was different now. Elena had touched the edge of a world she didn't understand. She'd seen Victor handle armed men like they were children. She'd heard the respect in their voices when they said his name. And she'd felt something else, too. Something that scared her more than the guns or the danger. She'd felt protected. For the first time in 2 years, someone else had stood between her and the world. Someone strong enough to make bad men run away. Someone who'd looked at her and said, "She's with me." Elena didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window, watching the street. Part of her was terrified that the men would come back. Part of her was terrified that Victor would, but mostly she was terrified of the tiny voice in her head that whispered she hoped he would. When morning came, Elena got Sofia ready for school like always. She walked to work like always. She tied her apron and filled coffee cups and pretended everything was normal. But when she opened her locker at the diner, there was an envelope waiting. Inside was more cash than Elena had ever seen in one place. Enough to pay rent for 3 months. Enough to buy Sofia new clothes. Enough to fix their heater. There was no note, no explanation, just the money and the memory of storm-gray eyes saying, "She's with me." Elena stared at the bills until her hands stopped shaking. Then she closed the envelope and put it in her purse. She had a choice to make. She could take the money and try to forget last night ever happened. Or she could ask questions and risk everything. But as she looked at the cash that could change their lives, Elena realized the choice had already been made. Last night, she'd stepped into Victor's world, and something told her there was no stepping back. 3 days later, Elena's electricity came back on. She flipped the switch and the lights blazed to life like magic. Sofia clapped her hands silently, spinning around their tiny living room. Elena hadn't paid the electric bill. She couldn't have paid it even with her tips, but somehow it was on. "Must be a mistake," she whispered to herself, but she knew it wasn't. The next morning, walking Sofia to school, Elena felt eyes on her. She turned around twice but saw nothing unusual. Just normal people going to work. Just normal life happening. But the feeling stayed with her all day at the diner. During her lunch break, Elena called the electric company. "Yes, Miss Russo," the woman on the phone said. "Your account shows a payment was made in full on Tuesday. Cash payment. Is there a problem?" "No," Elena said quietly. "No problem." She hung up and stared at her phone. Victor was taking care of things. Things she hadn't asked him to take care of. Things that made her feel grateful and trapped at the same time. That afternoon, Elena walked to Sofia's school like she did every day. She was early, so she waited across the street with the other parents and babysitters. That's when she saw him. Victor was kneeling next to a small orange kitten that was hiding under a parked car. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His hands were gentle as he coaxed the scared animal out. Sofia came running out of school and stopped when she saw the kitten. She looked up at Victor with wide, curious eyes. "He's lost," Victor said softly to Sofia, "and scared, like maybe he needs someone to take care of him." Elena crossed the street quickly. "Sofia, come here." But Sofia didn't move. She knelt down next to Victor and held out her small hand. The kitten sniffed her fingers and mewed softly. "He likes you," Victor said. His voice was different than it had been that night in the car, warmer, softer. "Maybe he could come home with you, if it's okay with your sister." Sofia looked up at Elena with hopeful eyes. She pointed to the kitten and then to herself. "We can't have pets," Elena said. "Our lease doesn't allow it." Victor stood up, still holding the kitten. "Leases can be changed." "Not by me, they can't." "By me." Elena stared at him. "You don't own our building." "I do now." The words hit Elena like cold water. She grabbed Sofia's hand. "We need to go." "Elena." "Don't." She backed away from him, pulling Sofia with her. "Don't do this. Whatever this is, don't." "It's protection. It's control." Victor's jaw tightened. "They're not the same thing." "Aren't they?" Sofia twisted in Elena's grip, reaching back toward the kitten. She made a small sound of protest, the first sound she'd made in months. "Sofia wants the kitten," Victor said gently. "Sofia can't have everything she wants." Elena snapped. That's not how the world works. It could be. Elena felt tears burning behind her eyes. Stop. Just stop. I don't know what you think is happening here, but I'm not part of your world. Sofia isn't part of your world. We're just normal people trying to get by. Normal people don't get followed by armed men. The truth of that statement made Elena's stomach drop. What do you mean? Victor looked around the busy street, then back at her. We need to talk. Somewhere private. No. Elena, you're in danger whether you accept my help or not. The only question is whether you face it alone. I've been alone for 2 years. I can handle it. Not this. Sofia tugged on Elena's sleeve and pointed to the kitten again. Her eyes were bright with something Elena hadn't seen in a long time. Hope. Victor held out the small animal. At least let her hold him while we talk. Elena looked at her sister's face. Sofia had been through so much, lost so much. If holding a kitten could bring back even a tiny piece of the happy little girl she used to be. 5 minutes, Elena said. That's it. Victor placed the kitten gently in Sofia's arms. Sofia smiled, actually smiled, and nuzzled the soft orange fur. They walked to a small park nearby. Sofia sat on a bench with the kitten while Elena and Victor stood a few feet away. Start talking, Elena said. Someone thinks you matter to me. Why would they think that? Victor was quiet for a long moment. Because you do. Elena's heart did something complicated and painful. You don't even know me. I know you work 2 jobs to take care of your sister. I know you haven't bought yourself new shoes in 6 months because Sofia needed school supplies. I know you give her the biggest portion every time you share a meal. How do you know all that? I've been watching you. That's not romantic. That's creepy. Victor almost smiled. I don't do romantic. Then what do you do? I protect what matters. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. The afternoon was getting cold. And you think I matter? I know you do. Why? Victor looked at Sofia, who was whispering to the kitten. Because she needs you, and you need help keeping her safe. I can take care of my sister. Not from this. From what, exactly? You keep talking about danger, but you won't tell me what kind. Victor's expression grew darker. The kind that targets innocent people to get to me. Elena felt the ground shifting under her feet. So this is about you, not about us. It's about all of us now? No. Elena stepped backward. No, it's not. I'm taking Sofia home. We're going to have dinner and do homework and pretend none of this happened. Elena. And you're going to stay away from us. No more watching, no more following, no more paying our bills. Just leave us alone. Victor's eyes flashed with something that might have been pain. I can't do that. Why not? Because they already know about you, and they're coming. Elena's blood turned to ice. Who's coming? People who want to hurt me, and they think hurting you is the way to do it. Then you made me a target. Yes. At least he was honest. Elena felt angry tears starting to fall. You had no right. We were invisible. We were safe because no one cared about us. And you took that away. Your safety was an illusion. They would have found you eventually. Why? Victor looked at her for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was very quiet. Because I care about you. And in my world, that makes you valuable to my enemies. Elena stared at him. You don't care about me. You don't even know me. I know you sing to Sofia when she has nightmares. I know you gave her your winter coat last week and told her you weren't cold. I know you haven't been to a doctor in 2 years because you can't afford it. But you take Sofia for checkups every month. Stop. I know you cry in the shower sometimes because you think she can't hear you. I know you blame yourself for not being able to give her everything she lost when your parents died. Stop it. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met. And I know that if something happened to you, Sofia would lose the only good thing left in her world. Elena was crying now, angry and scared and overwhelmed. You don't get to decide what's good for us. No, Victor agreed, but I get to decide what I'm willing to die to protect. The words hung in the air between them. Sofia looked up from the kitten, sensing the tension even without hearing it. This isn't fair, Elena whispered. No, it's not. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I. Elena wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. What happens now? Now you let me keep you safe. For how long? As long as it takes. And then what? You disappear and we go back to our regular lives? Victor was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. At least he wasn't lying to her. Elena looked at Sofia, who was still smiling at the little kitten. Her sister had been through so much darkness. If Victor could give them even temporary safety, didn't Sofia deserve that? If I say yes, Elena said slowly, what does that mean exactly? It means you trust me to protect you. I don't trust you. Then trust that I need you alive. Why? What aren't you telling me? Victor ran a hand through his dark hair. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost vulnerable. There are things you don't need to know, things that would only frighten you more. I'm already frightened. I know. Elena looked at Sofia again. Her little sister was holding the kitten like it was made of spun glass. Precious, fragile, worth protecting. One night, Elena said finally, I'll give you one night to explain everything, but after that, if I don't like what I hear, you leave us alone forever. Deal. And Sofia gets to keep the kitten. Victor smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Deal. That evening, Elena packed a small bag while Sofia played with the kitten on the bed. She'd named him Sunshine, which seemed impossible given how gray their world had become lately. We're going on an adventure, Elena told Sofia, just for tonight, like a sleepover. Sofia nodded and carefully put Sunshine into the pet carrier Victor had somehow acquired in the 2 hours since their conversation. A different car picked them up this time. Not Victor, but Marco, the kind-eyed man from that first night. Miss Sofia, Marco said gently, I hear you have a new friend. Sofia held up the pet carrier proudly. What's his name? Marco asked. Sofia pointed to herself and then to the sky, miming the sun. Sunshine, Elena translated. That's a perfect name, Marco said. Very brave, just like you. Sofia smiled. The drive took them out of the city, past suburbs and shopping centers, into hills Elena had never seen before. The houses got bigger and farther apart. The gates got higher. Finally, they turned into a long driveway lined with tall trees. At the end was a house that looked like something from a fairy tale. Not huge like the mansions they'd passed, but beautiful, elegant, safe. Victor was waiting on the front porch. He'd changed out of his suit into jeans and a sweater. He looked younger, more human. Welcome, he said as they got out of the car. Sofia ran to him with the pet carrier. She set it down and opened the door. Sunshine poked his orange head out cautiously. He's grown already, Victor observed. He knelt down to Sofia's level. Should we find him some food? Sofia nodded eagerly. Victor led them inside. The house was warm and comfortable. Not fancy, just nice, like a real home. An older woman with silver hair and gentle eyes was waiting in the kitchen. She smiled when she saw Sofia. This must be our special guest, she said. I'm Lucia. I help take care of the house. Sofia waved shyly. I made dinner, Lucia continued, and I set up a special bed for Sunshine in the sunroom. Would you like to see? Sofia looked at Elena, who nodded. Lucia took Sofia's hand and led her away, chattering softly about cats and sunny windows. Elena found herself alone with Victor for the first time since that night in the car. "Nice house," she said, not knowing what else to say. "It was my grandmother's. It feels like a home. It is now." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Victor gestured toward the living room. "We should talk." Elena followed him to a comfortable couch near a fireplace. Real flames danced behind glass doors. Sofia's laughter echoed from somewhere deeper in the house. "She sounds happy," Victor said. "She is happy, for the first time in months." "Good." Elena studied his face in the firelight. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect? Someone scarier? Someone more like a monster?" "Maybe." Victor nodded. "Most people see the monster first. You saw something else." "What did I see?" "I don't know. You tell me." Elena thought about it. "I saw someone who was careful with Sofia. Someone who knelt down to her level instead of towering over her. Someone who brought her a kitten because he could see she needed something to love." "And that doesn't scare you?" "It should," Elena admitted, "but it doesn't." Victor stared into the fire. "My wife used to say that the most dangerous thing about me wasn't my anger. It was my capacity for gentleness." Elena's heart stopped. "Your wife?" "She died 3 years ago, along with our daughter." The pain in his voice was raw, barely healed. Elena felt her chest tighten with sympathy. "I'm sorry." "They were killed because of who I am, because of the life I chose." Victor's hands clenched into fists. "I swore after that I wouldn't let anyone else get close enough to become a target. But then you met us. But then I met you." Elena felt something shift between them, something warm and terrifying and inevitable. "Why us?" she whispered. "Why me?" Victor looked at her then, really looked at her. His storm-gray eyes held secrets and pain and something else, something that made Elena's breath catch. "Because when I saw you with Sofia that first morning, carrying her even though you were exhausted, singing to her even though you had nothing to sing about, I remembered what it felt like to want to protect something good." Elena's heart was beating too fast. "And now?" "Now I'm afraid I waited too long to remember." Before Elena could ask what he meant, Sofia came running into the room with Lucia close behind. "I'm sorry," Lucia said, "but she wanted to show you something." Sofia climbed onto the couch next to Elena and held up a drawing she'd made. It showed 3 stick figures, Elena, Sofia, and a tall man with dark hair. They were standing in front of a house with a bright yellow cat. At the bottom, in Sofia's careful printing, were the words, "My family." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Sofia hadn't drawn anything in months, hadn't used words in years. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Elena whispered. Sofia pointed to the tall figure and then to Victor. Then she climbed down and walked to him, holding up the drawing. Victor took it with careful hands. "Thank you," he said softly. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Sofia smiled and patted his knee. Then she yawned. "Someone's getting sleepy," Lucia observed. "Should we get ready for bed?" Sofia nodded and followed Lucia upstairs, still chattering silently about her drawing and her kitten. Elena and Victor were alone again. "She drew you into our family," Elena said. "I noticed." "Does that scare you?" Victor looked at the drawing for a long moment. "Terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I want it to be real." Elena felt her world tilting. Everything she thought she knew was changing. Victor wasn't just protecting them out of duty or guilt. He was protecting them because he cared. because somewhere in his dangerous, complicated life, he'd found room for them. Victor, she started, but before she could finish, every light in the house went out. The house plunged into darkness. Elena's heart slammed against her ribs as Victor's hand found hers in the blackness. "Stay calm," he whispered, his voice deadly quiet. "Don't move." Elena heard footsteps upstairs, Lucia's voice, soft and reassuring, talking to Sofia. At least they were safe for now. Victor's phone buzzed once, then twice. In the faint glow from the screen, Elena saw his face. Hard, focused, dangerous. "How many?" he said into the phone, his voice barely audible. Elena couldn't hear the answer, but she saw Victor's jaw clench. "Get them to the safe room, now." He hung up and turned to Elena. "We need to move." "What about Sofia?" "Lucia will take care of her. She knows what to do." Elena pulled her hand free. "I'm not leaving my sister." "You're not leaving her. You're protecting her." Before Elena could argue, soft footsteps came down the stairs. Lucia appeared with Sofia in her arms. The little girl was clutching Sunshine's carrier and looking around with wide, frightened eyes. "The safe room is ready," Lucia said calmly. Victor nodded. "Take them both." "No," Elena said. "If Sofia's going somewhere, I'm going with her." "Elena, no." Her voice was firm despite her fear. "We stay together. That's not negotiable." Victor stared at her for a moment. Then he nodded. "Fine. But you do exactly what I say when I say it. Understood?" "Understood." Lucia led them through the dark house to what looked like a regular closet. But when she pressed something on the wall, a hidden door swung open. Behind it was a small room, with thick walls and no windows. "It's soundproof," Lucia explained quietly. "And the walls are reinforced. You'll be safe here." Sofia clung to Elena as they settled into the windowless space. There were comfortable chairs, bottled water, and battery-powered lights. Someone had thought of everything. "How long do we have to stay here?" Elena asked. "Until it's over," Victor said. He was checking his gun, making sure it was loaded. The sight made Elena's stomach twist with fear. "What if something happens to you?" Victor looked up at her. "Then Marco will get you and Sofia to a safe house in another city. You'll have new identities, enough money to start over." "I don't want to start over. I want—" "What?" His gray eyes searched hers. "What do you want?" Elena looked at Sofia, who was whispering to her kitten. Then she looked back at Victor. "I want you to come back." Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or hope. "I'll come back," he said quietly. "Promise me." "Elena, promise me." Victor moved closer to her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, close enough to see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes. "I promise," he said. Then he leaned down and kissed her forehead, soft and gentle. "Keep her safe." "Keep yourself safe," Elena whispered back. Victor nodded to Lucia, who ushered them into the safe room. The heavy door closed with a soft click, and Elena heard the lock engage. They were trapped. Safe, maybe, but trapped. Sofia curled up in Elena's lap with Sunshine. The kitten purred softly, a tiny rumble of comfort in the terrifying silence. "It's okay, baby," Elena whispered, stroking Sofia's hair. "Victor will make sure nothing bad happens." Sofia looked up at her and pointed to the closed door. Then she made a questioning gesture. "He'll come back," Elena said, hoping it was true. "He promised." Time moved strangely in the windowless room. Elena didn't know if they'd been there for minutes or hours. Sofia dozed fitfully in her arms. Sunshine curled up in his carrier and went to sleep. Elena stayed awake, listening. She thought she heard voices once, far away and muffled. Maybe a car door slamming. But mostly there was just silence. Terrible, endless silence. Elena thought about Victor's promise, about the way his lips had felt against her forehead, about Sofia's drawing, with the three of them standing together like a real family. She'd never wanted a family again. After losing her parents, the idea of caring that much about someone had seemed too dangerous, too painful. But somehow Victor had slipped past her defenses. So had this house with its warm fires and gentle housekeeper. So had the idea that maybe, just maybe, they could have something beautiful. If Victor came back. If he kept his promise. If they all survived whatever was happening outside. Elena must have dozed because she woke to the sound of the lock clicking open. She sat up quickly, her arms tightening protectively around Sofia. The door opened and Victor stepped inside. He was alive. He was whole. He'd kept his promise. "It's over," he said quietly. Elena wanted to run to him, but Sofia was still sleeping in her lap. Instead, she just stared at him, drinking in the sight of his face. "Are you hurt?" she whispered. "No." "What happened?" Victor's expression darkened. "A test. They wanted to see how I'd react to a threat against you." "And?" "They got their answer." Something in his tone made Elena's blood chill. "What kind of answer?" "The kind that ends threats permanently." Elena looked at his hands. They were clean, but she could see tiny drops of something dark on his shirt cuff. She didn't ask what it was. She didn't want to know. "Is it really over?" "For now." Sofia stirred in Elena's arms and opened her eyes. When she saw Victor, she smiled sleepily and held out her arms. Victor knelt down and scooped her up gently. "Hey, sweetheart, you okay?" Sofia nodded and patted his cheek with her small hand. Then she pointed to his shirt and frowned. "Just a little dirt," Victor said softly. "Nothing to worry about." Sofia touched the dark stain with one finger, then looked up at Victor with concerned eyes. She pointed to it again and shook her head. "She doesn't like seeing you hurt," Elena said. "I'm not hurt," Victor said. "I promise." Sofia studied his face for a long moment. Then she leaned forward and kissed his cheek, right where she'd patted it. It was soft and innocent and trusting. Elena saw Victor's entire expression change. The hardness melted away, replaced by something raw and vulnerable. "Thank you," he whispered to Sofia. Sofia smiled and pointed to Sunshine's carrier. The kitten was awake and mewing softly. "I think someone's hungry," Victor said. They went back upstairs to the main house. Everything looked normal, as if nothing had happened, but Elena noticed new scratches on the front door, and one of the windows had a small crack in the corner. "Lucia made soup," Victor said, settling Sofia at the kitchen table. "And I think Sunshine needs some milk." While Victor and Sofia took care of the kitten, Elena pulled Lucia aside. "Was anyone hurt?" "No," Lucia said gently. "Victor made sure of that." "What about the men who came here?" Lucia's expression grew sad. "They made their choice, dear. Victor gave them a chance to walk away." Elena felt sick. "And they didn't take it?" "No, they didn't." Elena sank into a chair. She'd known this was Victor's world. She'd known it was dangerous. But knowing and experiencing were two different things. "Having second thoughts?" Victor asked quietly. He'd appeared behind her, moving silent as a shadow. "I don't know," Elena said honestly. Victor sat down across from her. "I won't lie to you. This is what my life is like. There will always be people who want to hurt me. And as long as you're with me, they'll want to hurt you too. So what do we do? You choose." Elena looked at Sofia, who was giggling as Sunshine lapped milk from a tiny dish. Her sister looked happier than she had in years, safe, loved. "What are my choices?" "You can leave. Marco will take you somewhere safe, far away. New identities, enough money to start fresh. You'll be protected, but you'll be alone. Or, Victor's gray eyes held hers. You stay. You let me protect you. You become part of my world with all the danger that brings. And in return, you get me? Victor said simply, whatever that's worth. Elena's heart did something complicated and painful. What do you get? A reason to come home? The words hung in the air between them. Sofia looked up from playing with sunshine and pointed to Elena, then to Victor, then to herself. Then she pressed her palms together, fingers interlocked. Together? Elena translated. Sofia nodded emphatically. She wants us to be a family, Elena said. What do you want? Victor asked. Elena looked around the warm kitchen. At Lucia humming softly while she stirred soup. At Sofia laughing with her kitten. At Victor watching her with those storm-gray eyes full of hope and fear. She thought about their tiny apartment with its broken heater and empty refrigerator. She thought about the eviction notices and the bills she couldn't pay. She thought about lying awake at night, terrified that social services would take Sofia away. But mostly, she thought about how Victor had knelt down to Sofia's level, how he'd brought her a kitten, how he'd kissed Elena's forehead and promised to come back, how he'd kept that promise. I want to try, Elena said quietly. Victor's entire face changed. Hope won out over fear, at least for the moment. It won't be easy. Nothing good ever is. Sofia clapped her hands and pointed to her drawing, still sitting on the counter. The stick figure family looked happy together. She knew before we did, Victor observed. Kids are smart like that. Victor reached across the table and took Elena's hand. His skin was warm and rough and gentle all at once. Are you sure about this? He asked. Elena looked at their joined hands. She thought about everything she was risking, everything she was choosing. Ask me again in a year, she said. Victor smiled, the real smile that made him look younger. Deal. Sofia toddled over and climbed into Victor's lap, still holding Sunshine. She looked up at Elena and patted the empty chair next to Victor. I think she wants us to sit together, Victor said. Elena moved to the chair beside him. Sofia immediately grabbed both their hands and pressed them together, wrapping her small hands around theirs. Family, Elena said softly. Sofia nodded and squeezed their hands tight. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows, but inside the warm kitchen, with Victor's hand in hers and Sofia safe between them, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in years. She felt home. It wouldn't be simple. There would be more danger, more fear, more nights like tonight when everything could go wrong. But there would also be mornings with breakfast around this table. Evenings by the fireplace, Sofia's laughter echoing through the halls. And Victor, with his storm-gray eyes and gentle hands, protecting what mattered most. Elena squeezed his fingers and felt him squeeze back. They were in this together now, all three of them. A family. 6 months later, Elena woke to the sound of Sofia's laughter floating through the house. Real laughter, bright and musical and free. It was the most beautiful sound in the world. She stretched in the big bed she now shared with Victor. Sunlight streamed through windows that overlooked gardens where Sofia played every morning, where Sunshine had grown from a tiny kitten into a sleek orange cat who followed Sofia everywhere like a faithful guardian. Elena could smell coffee brewing downstairs. Lucia was already up, probably making pancakes. Saturday mornings had become a tradition in their house. Slow mornings with nowhere to rush, no dangers pressing at their door. At least, not lately. Victor's side of the bed was empty, but still warm. He was an early riser, usually up before dawn to handle business calls. The dangerous parts of his work happened mostly when Elena and Sofia were sleeping. He was careful about that, protective of their peace. Elena pulled on a robe and padded downstairs barefoot. The house felt different now than it had that first terrifying night. It felt like home. Really home, in a way she'd never thought possible. She found Victor in the kitchen, fully dressed in a dark suit. His phone was pressed to his ear, and his voice carried that edge it got when he was dealing with business. "I don't care what the excuse is," he was saying quietly. "It gets done today, or we find someone else to do it." Elena poured herself coffee and waited. She'd learned to read his moods, to know when to interrupt and when to stay quiet. This was a stay, quiet moment. Sofia bounded into the kitchen with sunshine in her arms. She'd grown in the past 6 months. Her cheeks were fuller, her eyes brighter. She looked like the happy little girl she was supposed to be. "Good morning, sunshine," Elena said, kissing the top of Sofia's head. Sofia grinned and pointed outside where snow was beginning to fall, the first snow of winter. "Snow day," Elena said. "Should we build a snowman after breakfast?" Sofia nodded enthusiastically and started making elaborate gestures about the snowman they would build. She still didn't speak, but she'd found other ways to communicate. And sometimes Elena caught her humming, soft, wordless melodies that meant healing was happening, slowly but surely. Victor finished his call and slipped the phone into his jacket pocket. "Sorry about that." "Work?" Elena asked. "Always work." He kissed her forehead, the same gentle gesture he'd made that first night. It had become his way of saying, "Good morning, good night, and I love you all at once." "Will you be home for lunch?" Victor's expression grew careful. "I might be late tonight." Elena felt her stomach tighten. She'd learned to read those words, too. Late tonight meant dangerous business. It meant sitting by the window, watching for headlights. It meant worrying until he walked through the door. "How late?" "I don't know yet." Sofia tugged on Victor's suit jacket and pointed to the snow. She made a building motion with her hands. "You want me to help build a snowman?" Victor asked. Sofia nodded and pointed to herself, then Elena, then Victor, together. "I wish I could, sweetheart, but I have to work today." Sofia's face fell. She pointed to the snow again, more urgently this time. "The snow will still be there tomorrow," Elena said gently. "We can build a whole snow family then." But Sofia shook her head. She grabbed Victor's hand and tugged him toward the window. Outside, the snow was falling harder now, big soft flakes that would be perfect for building. "She wants you to stay," Elena said quietly. "I know." Victor knelt down to Sofia's level. "But sometimes grown-ups have to do things they don't want to do. You understand that, right?" Sofia studied his face with those wise, dark eyes. Then she touched his cheek with her small palm, the same gesture she'd made that first night in the safe room. "Be careful," Elena said. "Always am." "Victor." Elena caught his arm as he started to leave. "Whatever this is it about us? About protecting us?" "Everything I do is about protecting you." "That's not what I meant." Victor looked at Sofia, who was watching them with worried eyes. "Can you give us a minute, sweetheart? Go see if Lucia needs help with breakfast." Sofia reluctantly left the kitchen, sunshine trailing behind her. "There's been some chatter," Victor said quietly, "someone new moving into the area. Someone who might have heard about you and Sofia." Elena felt ice in her veins. "What kind of someone?" "The kind who thinks taking you would give them leverage over me." "Are we in immediate danger?" "No, not if I handle this right." Elena nodded. She'd learned not to ask for details about Victor's work. Some things were better left unknown. But she'd also learned to trust his judgment about their safety. "Just come home," she said simply. "I will." Victor kissed her then, soft and lingering. His hands framed her face like she was something precious. "I love you," he said against her lips. I love you too. They'd said the words for the first time just 2 weeks ago. Elena had been sick with the flu, and Victor had stayed up all night taking care of her. She'd woken in the morning to find him asleep in the chair next to their bed, still wearing yesterday's clothes. The words had tumbled out before she could stop them. I love you. Victor's eyes had opened immediately. He'd stared at her for a long moment, like he couldn't quite believe what he'd heard. Say it again, he'd whispered. I love you. Again. I love you, Victor Romano. He'd kissed her then, desperate and tender and grateful, and when they broke apart, he'd said the words back like a prayer. I love you too. God help me, I love you too. Now, watching him prepare to leave for something dangerous, Elena felt those words like armor around her heart. Whatever happened, they had this. They had each other. Go, she said, stepping back, but come home to us. Always. Victor left through the back door. Elena watched from the window as his black car disappeared down the long driveway. Then she turned back to the warm kitchen where Sofia was helping Lucia flip pancakes. Burnt one, Sofia signed, pointing to a slightly too dark pancake. Elena's heart stopped. Sofia had just used sign language. Real communication, not just gestures. Where did you learn to sign? Elena asked, kneeling down. Sofia pointed to Lucia, who was beaming with pride. I thought it might help. Lucia explained. I found some books, started teaching her simple words. She's very quick. Sofia made more signs. Elena couldn't understand them all, but she caught family and home and safe. We're working on full sentences, Lucia said. Aren't we, sweetheart? Sofia nodded and signed something else. Lucia laughed. She says the pancakes are better than the diner food you used to bring home. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Sofia was communicating, really communicating for the first time since their parents died. This is amazing, Elena breathed. Sofia grinned and signed what Elena was pretty sure meant pancakes now. They ate breakfast around the big kitchen table, Sofia chattering away in her new sign language while Lucia translated. The snow kept falling outside, turning the world soft and white and magical. Elena tried not to think about Victor driving through that snow toward something dangerous. Tried not to imagine what handling this right might mean. Instead, she focused on Sofia's bright laughter, on the warmth of the kitchen, on the way sunshine purred contentedly in Sofia's lap. After breakfast, they bundled up and went outside to build their snowman. Sofia insisted on making it as tall as Victor, which required Elena lifting her up to place the head. What should we call him? Elena asked. Sofia thought for a moment, then signed something. She wants to call him Guardian, Lucia translated, because he'll watch over the house while Victor is gone. Elena's throat tightened. That's a perfect name. They gave Guardian stick arms and button eyes and one of Victor's old scarves. Sofia stepped back and signed her approval. The afternoon passed quietly. Sofia napped with sunshine curled beside her. Elena tried to read but found herself staring out the window every few minutes, watching the driveway. Evening came early, the way it did in winter. Elena made Sofia's favorite dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup. They ate by the fireplace, playing board games and pretending everything was normal. But as the hours stretched on, Elena's worry grew. Victor had said he might be late, but he usually called if he was going to be past midnight. At 10 o'clock, Elena put Sofia to bed. The little girl signed a question Elena didn't need translated. He'll be home soon, Elena said, smoothing Sofia's hair. He promised, remember? Sofia nodded, but Elena could see the worry in her dark eyes. Sofia had lost parents before. She knew that sometimes people didn't come home. Elena kissed her forehead and tucked the blankets around her. Sweet dreams, baby. Downstairs, The house felt too quiet. Elena tried watching television, but she couldn't focus. She tried calling Victor's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. At midnight, she called Marco. "He's fine," Marco said immediately, like he'd been expecting her call. "Just running longer than expected." "How much longer?" "Hard to say, but Elena, he's okay, I promise." "Can I talk to him?" "Not right now, but I'll tell him you called." Elena hung up, only slightly reassured. She curled up on the couch with one of Victor's sweaters, breathing in his scent and trying not to imagine the worst. At 2 in the morning, she finally heard the sound she'd been waiting for, the low rumble of Victor's car in the driveway. Elena ran to the window and saw him getting out of the black sedan. He was moving carefully, like he was hurt, but he was walking. He was alive. She met him at the back door. In the porch light, she could see that his shirt was torn and there was blood on his knuckles. But his gray eyes were clear and focused. "It's done," he said simply. Elena threw her arms around him, not caring about the blood or the torn clothes. He was home. He was safe. Nothing else mattered. "Are you hurt?" she whispered against his chest. "Nothing serious." Elena pulled back to look at him. There was a cut above his left eyebrow, and his lip was swollen. "This doesn't look like nothing serious. You should see the other guys." Elena didn't want to know about the other guys. She helped Victor out of his ruined shirt and cleaned the cut on his forehead. His hands were gentle as she worked, stroking her hair and murmuring soft reassurances. "Is it really over?" she asked. "This thread is over. There will probably be others." "But not tonight." "No, not tonight." They went upstairs quietly, trying not to wake Sofia. But as they passed her room, Elena heard a small sound. Sofia was sitting up in bed, sunshine in her arms. When she saw Victor, her whole face lit up with relief. "Hey, sweetheart," Victor whispered, going to her bedside. "Sorry I'm so late." Sofia reached up and touched the cut on his forehead with worried fingers. Then she signed something urgent. "She wants to know if you're okay," Elena translated. "I'm fine," Victor said gently. "Just a little scratch. Nothing to worry about." Sofia didn't look convinced. She pointed to his swollen lip and frowned. "Sometimes grown-ups have to fight bad guys," Victor explained, "but the good guys always win." Sofia considered this. Then she leaned forward and kissed his cheek right next to the cut. It was soft and innocent and healing. "Thank you," Victor whispered. "That makes it feel much better." Sofia smiled and settled back into her pillows. She signed something else. "She says she's glad you came home," Elena said. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." They tucked Sofia back in and went to their own room. Elena helped Victor shower and bandage his knuckles. When they finally crawled into bed, she curled against his side, feeling the steady beat of his heart. "I was scared," she admitted. "I know. I kept thinking about Sofia's face if you didn't come back, about having to explain that another person she loved was gone." Victor's arms tightened around her. "That's not going to happen." "You can't promise that." "I can promise that I'll fight like hell to make sure it doesn't." Elena lifted her head to look at him. "Is this what our life will always be like? Waiting, worrying?" "I hope not, but maybe." Elena traced the cut on his forehead with gentle fingers. "Then I guess we make the good moments count." Every single one of them. Victor rolled her onto her back and kissed her, careful of his swollen lip. His hands were tender as they explored her body, like he was memorizing every inch. They made love slowly, quietly, aware of Sofia sleeping down the hall. It was desperate and gentle and grateful all at once. A celebration of survival, of coming home, of having something worth fighting for. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the darkness. listening to the wind outside. "I have something to tell you," Victor said quietly. Elena's heart skipped. "What?" "I'm making changes to the business, stepping back from the front lines." "Why?" "Because I have too much to lose now." Elena turned in his arms to face him. "Victor, I want to be here for Sofia's first words. I want to teach her to drive someday. I want to walk her down the aisle at her wedding." His voice was soft but determined. "I want to grow old with you." Elena felt tears gathering behind her eyes. "What does stepping back mean exactly?" "It means other people handle the dangerous jobs. It means I work from home more. It means fewer nights like tonight." "And your enemies will accept that?" "My reputation will protect us, and Marco will take over most of the day-to-day operations." Elena searched his face in the moonlight. "Are you sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything." "What changed your mind?" Victor smiled, the expression soft and real. "Sofia's drawing, the one where we're all together like a family. I realized I want that to be real, not just for a few stolen moments, but really real, forever real." Elena's heart did something complicated and wonderful. "Forever real?" "If you'll have me." "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" Victor reached for the bedside table and pulled out a small black box. Elena's breath caught. "I bought this 3 months ago," he said. "I've been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment." "And this is the right moment? When you're bruised and bleeding?" "This is exactly the right moment. When I'm home safe with the woman I love and the little girl who made us a family." Victor opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Not huge or flashy, but perfect. Like something that belonged on Elena's hand. "Elena Russo," he said softly, "will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life protecting you and Sofia and whatever other children we might be lucky enough to have?" Elena stared at the ring, then at Victor's hopeful, vulnerable face. 6 months ago, she'd been a struggling waitress with no hope and no future. Now she was looking at forever with a man who'd turned her world upside down in the best possible way. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. Yes to forever. Yes to all of it." Victor slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for her. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I love you too." They kissed until they were breathless, until the world outside ceased to exist, until there was nothing but this moment, this bed, this promise of forever. A soft knock at their door interrupted them. "Come in," Elena called, quickly pulling the covers up. Sofia peeked around the door, clutching sunshine. She looked worried. "Bad dream?" Victor asked gently. Sofia shook her head and pointed to the window where the wind was rattling the glass. "The storm is keeping you awake," Elena said. Sofia nodded and looked hopefully at the bed. "Come here, sweetheart," Victor said, pulling back the covers. Sofia climbed in between them, settling against Victor's side with sunshine purring on her chest. "Better?" Elena asked. Sofia nodded and signed something. "She says this feels like home," Elena translated, though she was guessing at some of the signs. "It is home," Victor said, stroking Sofia's hair. "For all of us." Sofia smiled and closed her eyes. Within minutes she was asleep, safe between the two people who loved her most. Elena looked at the ring on her finger, catching the moonlight. Then she looked at Victor, who was watching Sofia sleep with an expression of fierce protectiveness. "She's going to be so excited when we tell her," Elena whispered. "Think she'll want to be in the wedding?" "She'll insist on it." Victor smiled. "Good. It wouldn't be right without her." Outside, the storm continued to rage. But inside their warm bedroom, with Sofia sleeping peacefully between them and Sunshine purring contentedly, Elena felt nothing but peace. This was her family, complicated and unconventional and born from danger and fear, but real, forever real. And tomorrow, when the storm passed and the sun came out, they would start planning their future together. All four of them, Elena, Victor, Sofia, and even Sunshine. But for tonight, it was enough to lie here in the darkness, listening to the people she loved breathe, knowing they were safe, knowing they were home. Elena closed her eyes and let sleep take her, the ring on her finger a promise of all the tomorrows to come. 6 months later, the wedding was small and perfect. Just family, Lucia and Marco, and a few of Victor's most trusted associates. Sofia wore a pale yellow dress and carried a basket of flower petals, beaming as she walked down the makeshift aisle in their garden. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the union, Sofia stood up and signed enthusiastically. The minister looked confused until Elena translated. She says we're already family, so this is just making it official? Everyone laughed, including Victor, who had tears in his eyes. They exchanged simple vows under an arch of white roses. Victor promised to love and protect Elena for all his days. Elena promised to stand beside him no matter what storms came. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Sofia cheered, actually cheered out loud, with her voice, for the first time in 3 years. "Yay!" she shouted, clapping her hands. "Married!" Elena and Victor stared at her in shock. "Sofia!" Elena breathed. "You spoke!" Sofia grinned and ran to them, throwing her arms around both their waists. "Family!" she said clearly. "My family." Elena burst into happy tears. Victor lifted Sofia into his arms and spun her around, both of them laughing. "Say it again," he said. "Family." Sofia giggled. "Happy family." The reception was perfect, too. Dancing in the garden under string lights, Sofia chattering nonstop as if making up for 3 years of silence. Sunshine wearing a tiny bow tie and getting spoiled with treats from every guest. As the evening wound down, Elena and Victor stood at the edge of the dance floor, watching Sofia teach Lucia a complicated dance she'd apparently invented on the spot. "No regrets?" Victor asked, his arm around his new wife's waist. Elena looked at her husband, and smiled. "Only one," she said. Victor's expression grew concerned. "What's that?" "I wish we could have met sooner. I wish Sofia could have had this happiness all along." Victor pulled her closer. "We found each other when we were supposed to, and Sofia has her whole life ahead of her to be this happy." Elena leaned against his chest, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong. "I love our story. Even the scary parts? Especially the scary parts. They led us here." Sofia ran over and grabbed both their hands. "Dance," she demanded. "Family dance." They formed a circle, Elena, Victor, and Sofia, and danced under the stars. Sunshine wound around their feet, purring loudly enough to be heard over the music. This was happiness, Elena thought. Real, complicated, hard-won happiness. Not the fairy tale kind that came easy and perfect, but the kind that survived storms and danger and fear. The kind that lasted. "Forever," she whispered to Victor as they danced. "Forever," he whispered back. And Sofia, their bright, brave little girl who'd found her voice again, laughed with pure joy and shouted to the stars, "Forever family!"